What if you could peel back time, not by centuries or even millennia, but by nearly 7 million years? Not to pharaohs or philosophers, but to a moment so ancient it hides in silence, buried deep beneath layers of stone and sand. Today, we're not journeying into history books. We're stepping into a world where human wasn't even a concept. A world untouched by fire. A world where even the notion of shaping stone into tools was as distant as interstellar travel. Imagine standing in a time when no one walked upright with purpose. No language, no art, no firelight in the night. Only instinct and the raw pulse of survival. Before Homo sapiens, before the ones who painted caves and forged blades, there was something in between. Something not quite ape, not yet human, caught at the edge of becoming. This is the place where our lineage split. A quiet revolution written not in words, but in bones. This is the story of that fork in the road, when survival demanded transformation. Welcome to the beginning of us. Welcome to a time before we were human. Our journey begins in a world unrecognizable to modern eyes. The African continent, our ancestral cradle, was not the scorched savanna we often imagine. Nearly 7 million years ago, it was a wild tapestry of ecosystems. Dense, humid forests stretched endlessly, tangled with vines and life. These forests melted into wetlands that shimmered with water and sound, and into grasslands just beginning to push outward like green fingers across the earth. But paradise was under siege. The Earth's climate had begun to cool. Slowly, relentlessly, the great forests started to shrink. Not overnight, but like a tide pulling back. The canopy that had protected life for millions of years was retreating, and with it came a creeping uncertainty. In its place rose new lands, unshaded, unpredictable, and brutally exposed. This shifting landscape wasn't just a backdrop, it was a crucible. The ancient world was still teeming with life, but it was a brutal kind of beauty, raw, unfiltered, and merciless. Towering deinotheriums, massive elephant-like beasts with downturned tusks, thundered across the plains. Above, enormous birds of prey soared in wide arcs, scanning for movement. In the tall grass, something worse lay in wait, Macaridus, a saber-toothed predator with the power to silence a bloodline in a single strike. Every step, every breath was a gamble. For these early ancestors, survival wasn't about conquest. It was about vigilance. Every sound could mean death. Every patch of shadow might hold a hunter. But it was in this crucible of uncertainty and fear that a spark began to form, an adaptation that would push one group beyond the instincts of the past and into something new. Not by dominance, but by necessity. In the silent heart of the Jurub Desert in Chad, Africa, an arid expanse where the wind carved stories into the sand, a team of scientists made a discovery that cracked open the very beginning of our story. Beneath layers of ancient earth and nearly 7 million years of silence, something waited. A skull. Worn by time but unmistakable. A fossilized face that stared back from the brink of becoming. This was Sahelanthropus cadensis, a being suspended between two worlds. Neither ape nor human, but something astonishingly close to both. At first glance, the skull told a familiar story. A small brain case, no bigger than that of a chimpanzee, and heavy brow ridges that echoed our primate past. But one detail shattered expectations. The foramen magnum, the hole where the spine connects to the skull, wasn't at the back like in most apes. It sat centrally beneath the head, and that changed everything. It meant this creature stood more upright than it should have. It meant it may have walked, not crawled. This wasn't just another extinct primate. This was a proto-hominin, possibly the first of its kind. And with it, the ground beneath our understanding of where we began started to shift. While Sahelanthropus may be the earliest known ancestor, the fossil record is not a single line, it's a puzzle. Other remains, like Ororantuginensis from Kenya, suggest multiple early species experimenting with upright movement. They weren't fully ape anymore, but they weren't human either. This was a biological crossroads, where evolution didn't select a winner, it invited risk. These early beings weren't aware of what they were becoming, but every cautious step across the plains carved a trail forward. They weren't shaping fire yet, but they were shaping their place in the world, one slow, uncertain step at a time. It's one of the most puzzling questions in our story. Why stand? Why would a small, vulnerable creature risk giving up the stability of 4 limbs for the instability of 2? The answer: the world changed, and so did the rules. As forests disappeared and grasslands expanded, standing upright gave our ancestors critical advantages. They could see predators from farther away. They could carry food and infants. They could keep their bodies cooler under the blazing sun. Each tiny benefit could mean survival. And over generations, their bones began to follow their choices. The spine curved for shock absorption. The pelvis tilted and shortened for balance. The skull repositioned itself. The feet developed arches to carry weight. They didn't evolve all at once, but little by little nature rewrote their posture, not out of ambition but out of necessity. What did a typical day look like? They moved together, dozens at most, searching for sustenance. From sunrise to dusk, they searched, berry clusters in trees, roots in cracked earth, and protein-rich insects beneath rotting bark. Every discovery came with risk. Their world was alive with predators. A wrong step could invite a fatal encounter. They communicated through instinct, grunts, gestures, and sharp glances. They didn't speak, but they understood. They knew the look of fear, of warning, of reassurance. They hadn't invented tools, but they were beginning to adapt. A stick to pull fruit, a rock to dig roots. Not tools yet, just survival made tangible. Life was a fragile dance. Each day a tightrope walk between finding food and becoming it. The grasses swayed with more than just the wind. Predator could be anywhere. Crocodiles lurked in muddy rivers. Saber-toothed cats prowled the shadows. There were no safe places, only moments of rest between threats. Even so, they endured. They adapted, and with every danger they escaped, evolution tightened its grip, shaping instincts, reflexes, and eventually, the spark of something more. 6 to 7 million years ago, a divergence began. One group remained in the forests, adapting to arboreal life. Those would become chimpanzees. Another group ventured out, adapted to the savanna, and began walking upright. That branch would become us. It was not a decision. It was a direction imposed by the environment and shaped by time. Everything that followed, tools, fire, culture, spaceflight, began here with this split. The great separation of paths that would never meet again. They couldn't speak, but they could feel. They groomed each other for trust, protected their young with fierce devotion, stayed close to the old and vulnerable. They didn't understand empathy, but they lived it. Something had begun. An awareness. Connection. It wasn't human yet, but it was getting closer. Fossils are more than bones. They are echoes, preserved glimpses into a world before memory. They didn't know they were making history. They only knew survival, protection, movement. But in that, they lit the first spark of everything we would become. They were the first hint of something extraordinary. An ancient flicker of intention, barely visible, but undeniably there. This story matters because it's our origin. Without these beings, there would be no hands to build, no minds to dream. We carry them forward not as myth but as motion, thought, instinct. They weren't human, but they made humanity possible. This was life 6.9 million years ago, a world before fire, before speech, before identity. In our next chapter, we'll watch that flicker catch. Tools, control, the first signs of intent. If this journey sparked something in you, if it made you wonder where we came from, like this video, subscribe and share it with someone curious. Because the question that started it all still echoes today.